Ryan Leaf. The NFL draft was defined by one question: Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf? Manning was polished, cerebral, the safe pick. Leaf was raw, fiery, and had the rocket arm. Indianapolis chose Manning first overall. The Chargers took Leaf at number 2, believing they had their own franchise quarterback. It was a disaster from the very first snap. Leaf lasted just 3 seasons in San Diego. He went 4-17 as a starter, threw 14 touchdowns against 36 interceptions, and posted a career passer rating of 50. His most famous moments weren't on the field, they were tantrums, berating reporters, fighting coaches, clashing with teammates. Instead of leading a franchise, Leaf became the poster child for immaturity and wasted talent. The fallout was catastrophic. The Chargers invested everything in Leaf, and he set them back years. They cycled through stopgaps until 2001, when they finally drafted Drew Brees. Even then, it wasn't until Philip Rivers took over in 2006 that the franchise stabilized at quarterback. Ryan Leaf wasn't just a bust. He was the bust, the cautionary tale that every team fears on draft night. But the question remains: did Ryan Leaf ruin the Chargers, or did the Chargers ruin Ryan Leaf? JaMarcus Russell, Raiders 2007. The Oakland Raiders held the #1 overall pick and were desperate for a savior, the face of the franchise, the quarterback to bring them back from irrelevance. That's when JaMarcus Russell entered the spotlight. At LSU, he was a physical marvel, 6 feet 6 inches, 260 pounds, with the kind of arm that made scouts go wide-eyed. He could throw the ball 70 yards flat-footed. He could launch it 50 yards from his knees. His college highlight reel looked like something out of a video game. At his pro day, he uncorked a 70-yard bomb with ease and left jaws on the floor. Al Davis was sold. The Raiders made him the first overall pick in 2007, handing him a 6-year, $61 million contract with $32 million guaranteed, the richest rookie deal in NFL history at the time. Before he even took a snap, he was the highest-paid player on the roster. Oakland believed they had their franchise cornerstone. Instead, they drafted one of the greatest busts in NFL history. Russell's career lasted just 3 seasons. He went 7-18 as a starter, completed only 52% of his passes, and threw 18 touchdowns against 23 interceptions. His passer rating? A dismal 65.2. But the numbers only tell half the story. His conditioning was a constant issue. He showed up to camp overweight year after year, at one point ballooning close to 300 pounds. Coaches questioned his preparation, handing him blank DVDs labeled game film just to test him. Russell came back the next day claiming he had watched the film proof he hadn't even bothered to check. By 2009, he had completely lost the locker room. His work ethic was non-existent, his confidence gone, his arm strength wasted by poor fundamentals. The Raiders released him after just 3 seasons, eating millions of dead money and leaving the franchise adrift. The fallout was catastrophic. Oakland spent nearly a decade trapped in quarterback purgatory. From 2007 to 2013, they cycled through JaMarcus Russell, Andrew Walter, Jamarcus Gradkowski, Jason Campbell, Carson Palmer, and Matt McGloin. It wasn't until 2014, when Derek Carr arrived, that the team finally found stability again. Russell didn't just bust. He became the symbol of wasted potential in the NFL. A once-in-a-generation arm, destroyed by apathy, poor conditioning, and a franchise willing to throw everything at a player who never wanted to put in the work. The question lingers: was JaMarcus Russell simply the biggest bust in NFL history, or was he proof that no amount of talent can save you if you don't care? Akili Smith, Bengals 1999. The Cincinnati Bengals were desperate to find their franchise quarterback. The NFL was entering a new era of passing, and Cincinnati was tired of irrelevance. With the 3rd overall pick, they locked in on Akili Smith, a raw prospect out of Oregon who had exploded in his 1 full season as a starter. Scouts drooled over his size, athleticism, and rocket arm. In a draft loaded with quarterbacks, Tim Couch, Donovan McNabb, Dante Culpepper, the Bengals believed they had found their lucky charm. The hype was enormous. Smith signed a 7-year, $56 million rookie deal with $10.8 million guaranteed, massive money for the time. Cincinnati had passed on a blockbuster trade offer from the Saints, who reportedly wanted to give up their entire draft just to move up. The Bengals said no. They thought they'd found their man. But from the moment Smith took the field, it was clear the gamble had backfired. He started just 17 games across 4 seasons. His numbers were disastrous: 5 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and a 3-14 record as a starter. His mechanics were sloppy, his accuracy non-existent, and his confidence crumbled almost immediately. In 2000, Smith threw just 3 touchdown passes all year while being picked off 6 times and sacked 26 times. By 2002, he was out of the league completely. The fallout was brutal. From 1999 through 2002, the Bengals won just 19 games combined, trapped in quarterback hell while other franchises found their futures. The Eagles drafted McNabb, the Vikings landed Culpepper, the Patriots stole Tom Brady in the 6th round the very next year. Cincinnati passed on all of them and wasted the pick on Smith. It wasn't just a bust, it was a setback that defined the franchise. Fans who lived through it still call it one of the darkest stretches in Bengals history. And the truth remains, with one draft pick, Cincinnati didn't just lose a quarterback, they lost half a decade of their future. Johnny Manziel, Browns 2014. Johnny Manziel wasn't just a draft pick, he was a phenomenon. At Texas A&M, he became the first freshman to ever win the Heisman Trophy. He played with reckless electricity, scrambling, launching bombs, and celebrating with money signs that turned him into a national brand. Johnny football was larger than life, and the Cleveland Browns believed they were drafting more than a quarterback. They thought they were drafting a star. The Browns drafted him 22nd overall, convinced his improvisation and charisma would ignite their franchise. Manziel promised to deliver, literally telling reporters on draft night, "The Browns are going to get the best quarterback in the draft. I'm bringing the Browns back." It never happened. Manziel spent just 2 seasons in the NFL. He started 8 games, won only 2, and finished with 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and a 74.4 passer rating. But the stats were almost irrelevant compared to the chaos. He missed team meetings, partied in Las Vegas under fake names, showed up to practice hungover, and even admitted years later that he never studied film. He openly told coaches he didn't know the playbook. By 2016, he was gone from the league. Not traded, not injured, just out. The fallout for Cleveland was brutal. Once again, the Browns had gambled on a quarterback to end decades of misery, and once again, they were left empty-handed. From 1999 to 2017, the Browns started 26 different quarterbacks. Manziel wasn't just another name on the list. He was the face of the dysfunction, the most infamous draft swing in their long line of failures. Johnny Manziel wasn't a quarterback. He was a brand, a mirage, a storm of hype and ego that vanished the moment reality set in. For Cleveland, it wasn't just a bust. It was another scar, another wasted chance, another lost era. Tony Mandarich, Packers 1989. The NFL draft was loaded with Hall of Fame talent. Barry Sanders, Derek Thomas, Deion Sanders. Legends waiting to be chosen. With the 2nd overall pick, the Green Bay Packers passed on all of them for a mountain of a man named Tony Mandarich. Nicknamed the Incredible Bulk, Mandarich was billed as the most dominant offensive line prospect ever. 6'6", 315 pounds, with freakish speed and strength. He graced the cover of Sports Illustrated, which called him the best offensive line prospect ever. Scouts said he was a lock to be an All-Pro. Instead, he became a disaster. Mandarich started just 3 games in 3 seasons. He was too slow, too stiff, and too unrefined to handle NFL defenders. Whispers of steroid use swirled, and by 1992, he was out of football completely. While Sanders and Thomas and Deion all became icons, the Packers were left holding one of the most infamous busts of all time. The fallout was devastating. Green Bay wasted a once-in-a-generation draft class. Instead of surrounding their roster with a Hall of Fame talent, they squandered the pick on a lineman who never lived up to the hype. It wasn't until Brett Favre and Reggie White arrived years later that the Packers climbed out of irrelevance. Tony Mandarich wasn't just a bust. He was the missed opportunity that defined a franchise. 1 pick, 3 legends passed over, and a name that still symbolizes what happens when hype devours reality. Charles Rogers, Lions 2003. The Detroit Lions needed a star. They held the number 2 overall pick, and staring them down was Charles Rogers, a hometown hero out of Michigan State. At 6'3", with 4.3 speed and leaping ability to dominate defensive backs, Rogers looked like the next great NFL wideout. He broke the NCAA record for consecutive games with a touchdown catch. He was compared to Randy Moss. To Detroit, he wasn't just a draft pick. He was supposed to be the face of the franchise. The Lions paid him like it. Rogers signed a 6-year, $39.5 million contract with $14.4 million guaranteed. Detroit fans thought they finally had their superstar. Instead, they got heartbreak. Rogers showed flashes as a rookie, catching 3 touchdowns in his first 5 games. Then disaster struck. He broke his collarbone in practice and missed the rest of the year. In 2004, he broke the same collarbone again, this time on opening day. 2 seasons, 6 games played. His body betrayed him before his career ever had a chance to start. But injuries weren't the only problem. Rodgers failed multiple drug tests, served suspensions, and clashed with coaches about his conditioning and preparation. By 2006, the Lions cut him. His career totals: just 36 catches for 440 yards and 4 touchdowns across 3 lost seasons. The fallout was devastating for a franchise already drowning in failure. From 2003 to 2006, the Lions drafted 3 wide receivers in the top 10: Rodgers, Roy Williams, and Mike Williams. Only Roy had a modest career, but none became the superstar Detroit needed. While other teams landed cornerstones, the Lions wasted premium picks on receivers who never delivered. It wasn't until 2007, when they drafted Calvin Johnson, that Detroit finally broke free from that curse. Megatron became everything Rodgers was supposed to be: dominant, reliable, Hall of Fame bound. Charles Rodgers should have been the savior of his hometown franchise. Instead, he became the face of wasted promise. For Detroit fans, his story is still a reminder of an era when the Lions couldn't get anything right. Tim Couch, Browns, 1999. The Cleveland Browns were back. After 3 years without a team, the franchise was reborn, and with the very first pick of the draft, they wanted a quarterback to build everything around. The choice was Tim Couch out of Kentucky. Couch was a college phenom. In Hal Mummy's air raid offense, he rewrote SEC record books, throwing for nearly 4,300 yards and 36 touchdowns in 1998 alone. At 6 feet 4 inches with a smooth release, Couch looked like the prototype to lead a modern passing game. The Browns saw him not just as their quarterback, but as the foundation of their future. Instead, they drafted into a disaster. Couch walked into an expansion roster with no offensive line, no weapons, and no chance. He was sacked 56 times as a rookie, battered behind a line that couldn't protect him. By the end of his first 2 seasons, he had been sacked over 100 times. His mechanics broke down, his confidence shattered, and the injuries piled up. Across 5 seasons, Couch went 22-37 as a starter. He threw 64 touchdowns against 67 interceptions, never posted a passer rating above 77, and never became the franchise cornerstone Cleveland needed. His one playoff start came in 2002, and even that was cut short by injury. By 2003, he was out of Cleveland. By 2007, he was out of football. The fallout was devastating for the Browns. Couch was supposed to be the rebirth of a franchise. Instead, he became the first name on what would grow into the longest-running quarterback carousel in NFL history. Since 1999, Cleveland has started more than 30 different quarterbacks, from Couch to Brady Quinn to Brandon Weeden to Johnny Manziel to Baker Mayfield and beyond. The so-called Browns QB curse began the day they drafted Couch. And that's the brutal truth. Was Tim Couch really a bust? Or was he destroyed by a franchise that never gave him a chance? Vernon Gholston, Jets, 2008. The New York Jets had the 6th overall pick and were chasing one thing: a pass rusher who could dominate games. They thought they found him in Vernon Gholston out of Ohio State. On paper, Gholston was a freak, 6'3", 266 pounds, with explosive strength and speed. He had crushed the combine, running a 4.640, benching 225 pounds 37 times, and posting a 35-inch vertical. He looked like a once-in-a-decade athlete. At Ohio State, he piled up 14 sacks his final year, bullying tackles and looking every bit the part of an NFL terror. Scouts said he'd be the next great edge rusher. Then the games started. Across 3 seasons in New York, Vernon Gholston never recorded a single sack, not one. For a player drafted to harass quarterbacks, it was unthinkable. He struggled to shed blocks, showed no instincts, and vanished on Sundays. In 45 career games, he produced just 42 tackles. By 2010, he was gone. The fallout was brutal for the Jets. That 2008 roster had a playoff-caliber defense under Rex Ryan, but without pressure off the edge, their window closed. Wasting a top 6 pick on a player who gave them nothing left a hole they couldn't fill for years. While the Jets cycled through defensive line misses, other franchises were landing cornerstones like Chris Johnson, Aqib Talib, and Joe Flacco later in that same draft. Gholston became something rare, not just a bust, but a ghost. He wasn't injured, he wasn't suspended, he was simply invisible. Drafted to terrorize quarterbacks, he never touched one. The question still lingers. Was Vernon Gholston the least productive top 10 pick in NFL history? If you want more stories of NFL greatness and collapse, hit subscribe, drop a like, and stick around. The next chapter of football history is already waiting.